Hey guys, Zim here, and today I'm back with another Star Wars Squadrons video. Today we'll be taking a look at playing the Republic in fleet battles, and if you enjoy this content, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more. So you found yourself in fleet battles as the New Republic. Time to abandon and re-queue, right? Wrong! You're gonna hop into your trusty X-Wing and show them why you feel like you can take on the whole Empire yourself. So the main reason I'm making this video is because I feel like the Star Destroyer is terrifying to attack. They have lots of guns, they have TIE bombers with rotary cannons defending it, and you've got to cross a solid length of the ship if you want to destroy shield generators in a prolonged fight. And the question I kept asking myself is, how do we get good damage on these things without killing ourselves? On top of this, I was finding it very difficult to defend the MC-75 versus multiple TIE bombers simply because I didn't have enough firepower in my guns to be able to take them out before needing to recharge. So I needed to find a way to deal with this. Now in this video, we're going to be taking a look at playing as like a hit and run kind of jack of all trades ship against cruisers and on defense. And on offense and against Star Destroyers, we're also going to be poking and prodding the enemy into frustration with ion missiles and very quick in and out bombing runs, along with some more sneaky rebel plays we have up our sleeves that make the length of the Star Destroyer work against itself. So first, let's take a look at the two main loadouts we're going to be using. One's going to be focused on attacking cruisers as well as defending, and the other one is going to be our Star Destroyer Assassin. So to start with, let's look at our cruiser and defense graph. This is basically going to be what we use most of the game, unless we're attacking that Star Destroyer. For this, we're going to be using standard lasers, because they're good all around, and have a solid sustained DPS. Along with this, we're going to have dumbfire rockets, as they're going to help us destroy turrets on cruisers and raiders, and increases our DPS drastically against those straight line TIE bombers and gives us a little extra oomph that we really need to take them down quickly. Along with those, we're going to have ion missiles to disable the enemy bombers and also for chunking down capital ships' shields from safety. These are also great because you can just dumbfire them if you need to. And for countermeasures, it's kind of up to you. I like to use particle bursts because we're going to be moving fast, so they're going to be following behind us a lot of the time. And also they reload quickly, so when we have multiple missiles on us, we can just pop those a couple times. We're going to be using a light hull here because max health isn't that important to us. And the general idea is if we lose our shields and go down to 20% hull anyway, we're probably dead. And these light hulls allow us to keep our targets trained a little bit better. And this can help when trying to aim those dumb rockets. And for the shields, we're going to be using fortified deflectors because shields are great, and we don't mind slower regeneration because we're going to go in, hit hard, and then get out to recharge. And for the engine, I'm going to just keep the standard one equipped because I don't want to give up any maneuverability or speed. This will end us up with an X-Wing that has great all-around stats along with very respectable firepower. Now for our Star Destroyer Assassin ship, we're going to be using standard lasers, proton torpedoes, which are insanely slow, and they require at least 500 range to lock on, can't be dumbfired, but these things pack a serious punch. Along with these, we're going to have ion torpedoes, which are basically the same thing as protons, except they wall up the enemy shields. And for countermeasures, we're going to go with either a sensor jammer or seeker warheads, it's up to you. And for our hull, we're going to be using the reflect hull, because without that, this build doesn't really do its job. It gives us our passive stealth if enemies are farther than 1500 meters away from us. Along with this, we're going to be using our resonant shield. And we're using this one because max shields are nice, but with this specific build, we're not going to be doing a lot of dogfighting and trying not to take too much damage. And this also allows us to charge our lasers quickly and get our systems maxed before we go in for an attack. And finally, we're going to be popping a thrust engine on this thing because we want to cross large distances quickly, and we don't need maneuverability really for this. Now on top of these two builds, we can also have an optional third one, which is basically the same thing as our cruiser fighter, but we just swap out the engines for the thrust engines. And I'll talk about that at the end of the video. So now you've got your loadout set up, but Zim, what's the plan? First, we're gonna need to get in the mindset of a rebel. We are the underdogs, and we need ways to even the odds. So we're going to be focused on taking advantageous fights and using the tools we have as effectively as possible. We also don't really have lives to throw away, and camped rotary cannons are going to tear us to pieces. So let's first look at the attack phase going up against cruisers. Now we're going to be playing this main build on offense as somewhat of like an elusive midfielder. Wherever the enemy is, we aren't, unless they're vulnerable. We want to do our best to stay out of those bombers' crosshairs while still being able to damage the cruisers. This is where our ion missiles are going to come in handy. You're going to be able to dumbfire these babies or lock on from up to 1500 range away outside of the enemy cannons. After you fire one of these, fall back and look for enemies hitting your teammates and fly as backup until they're up again. This is very low risk and allows you to spend your time and DPS on protecting your allies. Now once the shields are down on the cruiser, we're going to anamorph ourselves into an A-10 and strafe those things with our dumbfire rockets, then boost away as fast as we can to rearm. Now actually getting out can be a little more difficult on a map like Yavin, but others with cover, it should be kind of easy for you to get out, especially if you're going in and attacking when enemies aren't defending it. And if you do happen to pull off a couple fighters with you, that's kind of good, because now they're not defending and you don't have your armaments anymore. They're tracking someone who's not going to be able to do any damage. So you're going to end up rinse and repeating this over and over. The rockets are going to do great damage to those turrets. And you may not be putting out the same damage as a suicidal Y-Wing, but you're also making it out alive. So who's really doing the better job here? Now if the other cruiser still has shields up, feel free to just turn into it and fire some ion missiles. It just makes every attack more and more efficient. And should be pretty easy to do because they're usually about 1000 range away from each other. With these rotations, you should have a pretty solid attack phase without giving away too many needless deaths. Okay, let's swap sides for a second and talk about defense. This is the part where you get to ramp up that juicy KD ratio, or at least protect your objectives, I guess. Our ion missiles are going to disable those annoying ties and also pop open that radar shield quick. Using some focused lasers and rockets, we're going to be able to straight up spank those TIE bombers that are going a straight line right into our frigates. Now when there are no bombers around and the radar is still up, definitely tear into those turrets with your rockets and rob them of that sustained DPS. Keep in mind while on defense, if you see a support ship in the back line, feel free to push out a little bit and swat them down. Lasers and rockets work really great against space frisbees. And when you're out of rockets, or there's a lull in the onslaught, be sure to zoom over to your MC-75 to get resupplied, because we really do always want to be loaded up on rockets. You should be able to defend pretty well with this setup, and let's move over to talking about taking down that Star Destroyer. Hey, great job, Vanguard! You successfully taken out the enemy cruisers. Now it's time to sacrifice all your lives into the meat grinder that is assaulting a Star Destroyer. Wait. Just because I'm Red Squadron does not mean I'm trying to recreate a Russian suicide charge. But for some reason, this seems to be how most games end up. So what are we gonna do? Well, once you swap from offense to defense, or you want to be prudent and change loadouts after wiping their cruisers, head back to your MC-75 and whip out that stealthy boy X-Wing and fill up those shields. From here, you're gonna want to fly way out of any trouble you might run into, keeping that passive stealth on. This is why we want engines with increased max speeds, because we're going way out. Now depending on the map, this may not actually be possible. Looking at you, Mr. Abyss. And that is when the third loadout could be helpful, and we'll talk about that at the end. But really guys, you want to just go way out, wide, above, whatever, and eventually make your way to the rear section of the ship. And that's where you get to have your fun. Sitting 5 to 1500 range away from the closest targetable object, which probably should be the shield generators, you're going to toss out your spirit bomb, ion torpedo, if they still have shields. Now these shield generators are so far away from the front of the ship where most of the fighting is going to be taking place that you could still be stealth while dealing with them. Now hopefully your team or your corvette has taken at least some of the shield damage off, and firing your ion torpedo finishes off those shields. Next, you want to get as close to 500 range as you can before launching the slowest projectile you've ever seen, aka the proton torpedoes, at the same time leaning into those shield generators with laser fire. You're either going to do serious damage or outright kill it, and then you're going to zoom away and let your guns recharge, let your torpedo recharge, and do it again. Now at this point, some of those more alert players might notice when their intercoms go, their shield generators destroyed, and you might have to deal with them. Now even if you get shot down, pulling a few of these people off of the front and chasing you in the back or the super far sides of the Star Destroyer just means that there's less people defending the front. So actually pulling 2 or 3 people off is a great thing for you. And because we have those thrust engines, they're actually going to have a pretty difficult time catching up to you, or they're going to have to go way far out. Now again, you're going to just rinse and repeat this strategy over and over, and you should be able to take down those shield generators pretty quick. And once they're down, feel free to go wide in another direction to focus other subsystems. Go way up to be able to come down at the dive bomb on targeting, or go way down to come up on the power systems. And just keep throwing out those torpedoes. And remember, you want to fire them as close to 500 range as possible just because of how slow they are and they can get shot down. Congratulations, you've annoyed the hell out of the enemy team and can now feel confident playing as the New Republic. It may not be as simple and brain dead as TIE bombers going in and taking on your subsystems in under a minute, but I can't think of anything more satisfying than watching those space Doritos snap in half. Now, on a final note with Xavian Abyss, you're going to want to play that closer to a normal cruiser offense, poking the Star Destroyer with ion missiles to open it up safely. Then I generally go in and use the missiles and lasers to take out turrets and chip at subsystems if I can, and then dip out as fast as possible, try not to die. Now, you can try going high and low with Xavian Abyss too, but if a player's paying attention, it's kind of easier to spot you there. Especially if a non-stealth ally tries to follow your attack too. And with that, we're going to wrap up the video, guys. If you guys have anything to recommend me about how to pull these off a little bit better, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to know. And once again, if you've enjoyed this content, be sure to subscribe for more.